Well, hey there, WellHouse Church. Pastor Cullen here. We're going to do something a little different today. This is not my normal look. I'm out here. I spent the whole day working with my dad on our family ranch. And I recorded a different story earlier this morning, but just felt like I had something different to say. So we're doing it this way. I think the beautiful thing about this Christian story that we're all trying to live is that we're each trying to go about living and doing experiences of life, creating experiences of life, embracing experiences of life. I think that's the beautiful story and the beautiful message of Jesus, is that we're all living in a broken world. And to follow Jesus means to be in pursuit of experiences of life and being a person that's creating experiences of life for those other people around you. And if that is the case, then we all, throughout our own stresses and experiences of our own journey through life, end up in places where we have sin. And I use that in a very broad term. What I mean by sin when I talk about it is, sin is any action that's against God and the things of God that brings about experiences of death for another person. Whatever that experience of death may be. Paul uses death in a very personified way. And so in a very open and personified way, that's what I mean by the experience of death. And I think as we go about life, we sin. And things can get us off course. Things can happen. And while we may be making decisions that are ethical and we're doing all the right things, we have maybe become disoriented. I think that's the story we have this morning in the book of Acts. Acts chapter 20, the first part, is what we're supposed to be looking at this week. And if you want more in-depth movement, you can go tune into a closer look tomorrow. But by and large, the story is Paul moving around. And Paul ends up in this place called Troas. And when he's in Troas, what happens is, the text says in verse 7, they met on the first day of the week to break bread. Okay, now what that really means is they were at church. They went to church. On the first day of the week, they went to church, and they were in the middle of church. And the text says Paul is having a discussion with them. This is why we do WellHouse Church the way that we do, because it models the earliest house churches. They're all trying to figure this out together. And in the same way, I'm not so hubris to think that I have all the answers to give you, so I don't. They're just having a conversation about each of their own experiences of life. And Paul is probably the most trained, and so he maybe has the largest voice or loudest voice or most respected voice, but everyone is able to speak. And it says they ate and they're talking, and they've been there for hours, to the point that a young man named Eutychus is introduced into the story. And his character is so funny because his name literally means lucky, means fortuitous or fortunate. And the reason I think that's so funny is because it's a very fortunate situation that happens to him. Luke goes on to tell the story that so many people are at church that day trying to listen to Paul because he's fixing to leave. And he's there speaking so long because he's fixing to leave, and they want him to keep talking, that Eutychus the room is so full that he has to be seated up against the window. Well, story goes on to say that Eutychus falls asleep. And when he falls asleep, he falls out the window, 3 stories down, hits the ground, and dies. Paul goes down and says, no, he's not dead. The boy has life. Goes upstairs, eats some more, and keeps preaching. And then some people tend to him. Sure enough, he lives. It's the story, Acts 27 through 12. See, what you got to understand is the ancient world viewed sleep a lot of ways. I think this may be a historical event. I think this could have actually happened. I don't have a problem with a divinized ancient world, because everybody had a divinized ancient world. Signs and miracles were aplenty in the ancient world. And so it may be recording a historical event. That may be a very real thing. But I also think it has some allegorical interpretation to it. Shout out to my friend Jake Porter for helping me think through this. But the idea of a slumber in the ancient world could be like a true sleep, the way that we think about it today. But it also could be a symbolic action in storytelling, like a creative outlet, for the purpose of constituting laziness. Now, I'm not going to Bible beat anyone. That's not what we do here. But I will tell a self-deprecating story, because that is what we do here. I came out today to work on the family ranch because, I think in a lot of our journeys of faith and deconstruction and all the things that we're out here trying to do and heal from, it's very easy to end up in a place where we're running. We're running from all the things that we want to leave behind. And when we are running from all the things we want to leave behind, it's easy to forget where we come from. And that's what I was doing out here today, trying to remember where I come from, because for all the good that we do, for all the bad that we do, it's all rooted in where we come from. And for me, I know that it's real easy for me to get caught in a slumber. It's real easy for me to get caught in a situation where it's not necessarily that I'm being lazy or I've given up on my faith, but it is to say like, hey, maybe I need to reorient myself. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I'm just dozing off. Maybe I haven't fallen out the window yet. But it is to say that there are times and places where we need to be able to come and say, hey, I think I can maybe do better. I think there's something inside of me that I need to get back to the true heart of this, just to get back to true north, the reorienting. And I think that's the point of this story. I don't think, I hear a lot of preachers joke that, well, this is just proof that we should be able to preach for a long time and people should have to listen to us. That's terrible. I don't want to listen to myself talk for 45 minutes. I know y'all don't. But what I do think it means is that we can all easily find ourselves in a slumber. We can find ourselves in a spout of laziness with our faith. And I don't think that should ever be where our faith is. Our faith is the thing that gives and brings life. Our faith is the thing that keeps us going. And if we start to be in slumber with our faith, it's very easy to get off course. I think that's the message that Luke is trying to explain to us. And so, I told you that I feel like I have been in a slumber. And that's not to say that I've been out causing hellacious sins or raking it down or anything like that. But it is to say that we can all come to a place where we could say, hey, I could do better. I know that there are some places where I could do better. I could try to be more kind. I could do all of these things to bring about more experiences of life in the lives of other people and myself. And so, WellHouse Church, that is my question today, is what does it mean for you to reorient yourself out of your slumber and back into the fullness of the pursuit of the life through the divinity of the Spirit within you, that you, a person, are worthy of life and the experiences of life, and that just through the hustle and bustle and the experiences of death in the world, we may have fallen asleep. There may be some elements of us in our slumber that we need to reorient. And so I want to ask you, how do we do it and do it together?